Kyle Beats just re-released his plugin Sandbox, and this time he says it's optimized. For those of you that don't know, Kyle Beats, with a plugin called 2 Clicks Audio, released a plugin called Sandbox back in November of 2022. This was during Black Friday, and there was a lot of hype around the release of this plugin. And in fact, I was pretty excited about it myself. I really love the idea of creators making plugins, especially if they've been in the universe of making beats and things like that as well. So there's a kind of insight that they can have that other developers might not have. Well, here's the problem. It was super buggy. It was so bad, in fact, it was almost completely unusable for me. When I would X out of a project or even just the plugin itself, it would completely forget what preset was what, and it eliminated that entirely. It was completely unusable for me, and I wasn't the only one experiencing these bugs. In fact, it was so bad they pulled the plugin from the market and started working on it for the past couple months. They just re-released the plugin, and it's somewhat of a soft release of the plugin. In fact, I didn't even know they had re-released the plugin until I got a comment from Kyle Beats under the video I made back in November about Sandbox, saying that it's optimized and it's back. Full disclosure, I'm not getting paid from Kyle Beats to make this video. In fact, I spent my own money purchasing this plugin, which leads me into the next part of this video, which is the pricing points. Back in November, there was only 2 options to pay, and they were both subscription. You could pay annually, which saved you a little bit of money, and then you could pay monthly. This made a lot of people pretty upset because a lot of people just want to pay and be done, and I totally get where they're coming from. Now there's 3 options to purchase this plugin, and the third option is a perpetual license. Thank God, that is what everybody was asking for. I love the idea of subscriptions, but I think they should sit alongside perpetual licenses, just like the whole Waves thing a few weeks ago or about a month ago when they just eliminated perpetual licenses entirely, and the entire community kind of got really upset about it. And now they brought the perpetual licenses back along with a subscription model. Now I think you might get more with the subscription model out of this plugin, and I was a bit confused at the copy on the perpetual license. Like, you could reopen past sessions even if you cancel, but you shouldn't have to cancel anything if you purchase the plugin outright. I don't know if they just copy and pasted the sales copy over from one pricing card to the other. That might have been what happened. But either way, I think that it's sitting in a pretty decent spot as far as synths goes. The 3 price points are monthly at $9.99 a month. You can pay up front annually, which averages out to $808 a month. Nice. And then the perpetual license at $197, and then you're done. I think a lot of people will probably end up going the perpetual license route, but I think if you're a beginner producer and you're just looking to kind of get your feet wet with a synth, paying $10 to get access to this plugin to see if it's right for you is not a bad idea. They made the process of installing this really easy. In fact, I got a link in an email, and since I already had an old version of the synth, I didn't have to re-download 10 gigabytes worth of the plugin. I just had to update the bug fixes that were already inside of it. That was super nice. Once I installed it and brought it onto my computer, now it was time to start making beats with this. And I'll be honest with you, the quality was really good. I was really happy with the way things were sounding with this plugin. It is working way better than it did back in November when I first tried this plugin out. Like I said before, not much has changed as far as presets go. A lot of the presets seem to be working really well. There doesn't seem to be a lot of filler junk presets. I was missing an 808, which was kind of a bummer. I ended up using Anna 2 for the 808 in this beat, but because you can just drag in samples into Sandbox, you could drag in any 808 and start playing with it right away. So that wasn't necessarily the end of the world for me. You could also just create your own because it is a wavetable synthesizer with 3 different oscillators on it. Now, they did say that it was optimized, and I found that to be somewhat true. There's one bug that I found which isn't necessarily the end of the world, but when using the harmonizer, which you can press one key and get multiple different chords, and you can select scales and different types of chords, which I really like the Chinese pentatonics. Sometimes I will get sticky notes when I'm playing one note on my keyboard and it's playing the chords inside the synth. Sometimes notes will start to stick and I have to turn the harmonizer on and off again. This might be something that I'm experiencing and just me only, and I totally understand that, but it's not really the end of the world because I don't use the harmonizer that much anyway. One other thing I would love to see is a readout over here somewhere of the chords that's actually being played. This isn't the end of the world for somebody like me who knows a little bit of music theory and can look at the chords and get a pretty good idea of what they are. But for somebody who's a beginner and a beginner would probably more likely want to use the harmonizer, it would be really nice to have a visual aid of what the chords are, just as a way to start to develop and learn music theory. I really hope you can't hear that mower in the background. Now, as far as CPU usage goes, it is working way better than it was back in November when it first released. Back in November, it was using like 70% of my CPU power with just one plugin. Now I have 3 instances of Sandbox and it's hitting around 65 to 70% of my CPU, with a block size of about 256 samples, which isn't too bad. And you can see down here that Sandbox is using the most of my CPU processing power, which is understandable. Now, I really don't have a processing issue with my computer. I do have a Ryzen 3600 build, which is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, and I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, and everything inside of my PC is all SSDs, so it runs really, really fast. So if you are using maybe a hard disk drive and maybe like a dual-core or maybe even quad-core processor, you might run into some issues with this. I know that Serum runs a bit better than this, and a 2 runs a bit better than this, but it's still running way better than it was back in November when it first released, and I really haven't had that much of an issue with it myself. Now, it also might be just because I'm running a Ryzen CPU. They might have optimized this for Intel and M-series chips, which makes sense because every single Apple computer is either using Intel, if it's older than like 2020, or they're using the new M-series chips. And producers usually use Apple and not PCs all the time, so I can totally get where they're coming from. And even if you are using a PC, you might have an Intel chip in your PC as well instead of a Ryzen like I have, so I can totally understand why it might not be optimized for Ryzen CPUs. If you're using this plugin, let me know in the comments below how it's running on your system. I would genuinely like to know. But besides that, I really enjoy the plugin. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you could leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out in the algorithm to get my videos out to other producers and other people just like you. And as a way of saying thank you, I have some free gifts that you can download down in the description below. One of my favorites is the Ultimate Guide to Recording Vocals at Home. It's an entire guide, completely free, and it shows you step by step of how to get great sounding vocals anywhere in your house, even if you don't have a vocal booth or even acoustic treatment. And I even have a gear list in there if you're looking to purchase some gear and don't know what to buy. Now, I think you should watch this video next because that's the video that YouTube has recommended for you from my channel. So if you like this video, I know you're gonna love whatever this video is. So you can click there. I'll see you over there. And now, as always, go create.